Okay, so if you've ever been to the doctor and they mentioned BMI and you wondered, how is that relevant to me and why does it matter? Is it outdated? Today we're going to break down what BMI actually measures and why it's important to your health. So, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, David. Good morning, John. So, David, what exactly is BMI and why and how do doctors use it?
So BMI stands for body mass index, and most people have heard it from their doctor or healthcare provider mention BMI at some point, especially if you're in your 40s or 50s or beyond. You may have wondered, does body mass index or BMI still matter? Some people think it might be outdated or maybe not the most precise measuring tool for your health, but it is a number. It's a number that people use to help us give some information about health risk. So today we're going to break that down. We're going to talk about what BMI actually measures, where it may be useful, where it may fall short, and how it relates to metabolic age, especially as we age. And then we're going to connect that discussion to something more important about metabolic health. And we're going to talk about fiber and how it affects overall health, especially the gut microbiome. So that's where we're going to dive in today.
Okay, great. Let's do it.
All right. So let me start with the categories. What does it stand for? I mentioned it stands for body mass index. So what does it tell us? This number is derived from your weight divided by your height squared. Don't get too much into that detail, audience. There are many calculators online. You can just see what is my BMI. It's not a perfect measurement, but its idea is that it's been used for decades as a quick way. It's really quick to estimate population level health risk. So there's different categories. Between under 18.5, that number is considered underweight. Normal is between 18.5 and 24.9. And overweight is 25 to 29.9, so just under 30. Just for the audience, I fall in that category. My BMI is in the high 20s. Obese is equal to or greater than 30. And then there's additional categories for morbidly obese and things like that. So the idea here is that number, the higher you are, the more likely you may have metabolic issues, that you may be overweight. You may be at higher risk for things such as diabetes or insulin resistance, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, sleep apnea. But there's some limitations. Things like how much of this is muscle versus fat? So what does it really tell you a body fat composition? And it doesn't, and not necessarily. There are ethnicity differences. So should this be a more precise tool? Should different ethnicities have different BMI definitions of what constitutes underweight, normal, overweight, obese, and morbidly obese? But I will say that it's something that we see as anesthesia providers. So again, we're all anesthesia providers, doctors and anesthetists. And we have, for instance, in the outpatient surgery centers where patients are done and expected to go home the same day, there are cutoffs for how high a BMI can be if they're going to have surgery. And that's considered a safety issue because of challenges of taking care of patients with higher level BMIs. They often have metabolic conditions that increase that risk of issues and complications during surgery and anesthesia.
I'm looking at you right now and I know you personally, and yes, your BMI is high, but you are not overweight at all by
Thank you.
anybody's measures.
Well, I don't know. Thank
So
you, though.
so you have to look at more than BMI, but I think that there's a certain BMI that you are at risk, that you are overweight and that you are at risk for all of those things. So,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess I don't want audience to freak out if they have a higher BMI, but they're muscular because it's very different. So could you speak to that?
Yes. So obviously, if you look at some of these higher level athletes who may have a larger than average amount of muscle mass, a muscular athlete who's metabolically healthy could technically have a high BMI, but very low body fat. And that's a classic example
Mhm.
of anyone who wants to criticize this as a tool to give you insights. Well, and that fella will give you the wrong impression if you see it on the chart that their BMI is like 32, and you're thinking, well, this fellow's obese, and they show up and you see they have a 34-inch waist, and they're just muscles everywhere around, and they're six, they're just big fellow. That would give you the wrong impression.
Mhm,
Um, let's think of BMI as a potential risk indicator. It's
mhm.
not a diagnosis.
Yeah, so it's a tool and it's a trend, but not an absolute.
Correct. And there's also there's some things about, well, maybe things should be different for different ethnicities. And I'll speak to mine. Being an East Asian, East Asians can be higher risk, I think, than maybe many other ethnicities of being skinny fat. So you'll see people with low weight, they may have like a pooch, or just maybe most of their adipose tissue or fat isn't around their abdominal area. They'll have skinny T-Rex arms. They're not high weight, but they have skinny fat. And a lot of these people in this specific population, because I'm familiar with it, because I'm part of that population, they can have fatty liver disease, insulin resistance, and you look at them and go, oh, you don't look fat, but it's something that's prevalent and maybe in that population. Because I think in Japan and Korea, for instance, they have stricter measurements of what constitutes obesity in terms of the BMI range. Other ethnicities may actually be able to be at higher BMI and not be categorically at higher risk per se compared to a Korean person who has a lower BMI but actually is metabolically less healthy. So it's in that way, it's kind of a crude tool, and it could be refined perhaps in certain populations.
Okay. All right.
That's an example of where
Yeah.
you might have a normal BMI, but you have poor metabolic health. It's
So
not
it
at all
could go
unusual
either
to see
way.
that.
You could have a high BMI and be
Uh,
not
yes,
overweight, or you could have a low BMI and not be metabolically healthy.
correct. So have you,
So,
Eva or John, have you ever heard of the acronym TOFI?
no, I
TOFI
have.
stands for thin on the outside, fat inside.
Oh,
TOFI.
okay.
And there's a certain segment of these popular of individuals, again, highly prevalent in the East Asian community. They have visceral fat. They don't look huge to you when you see them. Maybe a little pooch in the
Mhm.
belly, visceral fat, insulin resistance, fatty liver, poor metabolic health markers. That's not rare. So just observing someone and their normal BMI does not necessarily, again, I'm just trying to emphasize some of the weaknesses of this. Whereas the super strong athlete that's low body fat, high BMI, or the normal BMI, poor metabolic health fella, that you look at them and goes, oh, you're not fat. You know,
Yeah.
maybe better health indicators like things like
Yeah.
how large is your waist? What's your blood pressure? Those are maybe better health indicators
Okay,
than
that's
BMI
good
alone.
information. Okay, so you
Yes.
have to take it in like everything else, you have to take it in context.
Yes. And additional
You know?
things like
It
fasting glucose, lipid panel, fitness level. Can you go up 2 flights of stairs? Things like that.
okay. Okay.
So
Uh,
let's be honest. Most people our age, 40s and 50s, we're not super athletes, right? So,
No.
with that said, would it be
good point.
more important in this age group to pay more attention to our BMI?
Perhaps. It's one marker, BMI, blood pressure. You can take even a blood pressure at home, although again, that could be an episode in and of itself of how to take it accurately and what time of the day, and making sure that you didn't have 3 cups of coffee before you took it. Things like that, yes. And you mentioned, John, about people our age. Cheyenne mentioned it kind of last time in the diet episode when we talked about paleo, keto, and carnivore, how it was part of the CrossFit community. So when you're in competitive athletic endeavors, that might not necessarily be the most uh, beneficial for long-term health. Because remember, you're in a competition, you're trying to win something, right? Like for us in this age group, we want to play the long game. I like to use that term, the long game. We want sustainability. Uh, if and when we have grandkids, we want to be able to run around with them even in mid to later age, right? So it requires a long game approach. Sometimes in competitive athletics, there's no long game. You got to win the competition. And you may damage your long game potential. So it goes back to middle age, BMI. It may not be the best thing. I would say it's one number, among many that might give you information about where you stand and where maybe if we have to make any adjustments to try to play that long game and have sustained long-term health and functionality.
If that's like a part of our health, our BMI, and then look at our blood pressure, our insulin resistance, all that stuff.
Mhm.
What are some ways that we can improve it if we need to? It like you said, most of us are probably not athletes right now,
Mhm.
you know, but
Mhm.
so our BMI, I agree with John, probably matters a little bit more. So, let's talk, what are some ways we could improve our BMI or our overall health?
Yeah, so if you wanna think about BMI and improving your BMI, well, what goes into BMI? Like I said, it's just 2 numbers, your weight and your height. So
So
if
I
you can
either gotta grow or lose weight.
Yeah, so the height thing ain't happening.
Okay, that sucks.
It's okay,
I
maybe
think I'm just too short.
and we need to
I'm
ask
not fat, I'm just
ourselves
too short.
no, ask ourselves, "Well, or wait, is it okay? Am I at a healthy weight? So what's my body composition?" Again, it goes back to like, well, look at again, when you check your labs or your metabolic health markers, like your fasting blood glucose or your lipids, um, and talking with your healthcare provider, that would give you insight. What's your blood pressure? If your blood pressure is normal and you're not having issues with that, that's a great sign that, and that whatever BMI you're at, it may be okay. It may be okay. What's your waist circumference? And that's a hot thing too that people are looking at. And is that an acceptable level? If your waist circumference is not high, excessively high, um, maybe your BMI is okay. Maybe you're one of those people that's very muscular and you just carry a lot of lean body mass on you, especially if you have done a lot of weightlifting, things like that. So those are things to consider about. You can change your BMI, but first ask, do I need to change my BMI? Are my other markers okay? If they're not okay, then you should probably come down to BMI. I would say when you start getting to extreme ranges, like when you go, 40 or more, it's very likely that your BMI is just too high.
Yeah.
Uh, Yeah, I mean, for us, even in our like our outpatient shoulder cases, if your BMI is over 40, we can't do that there because shoulder cases involve um, a, a, a a pain procedure to help decrease the pain after the surgery that knocks out your diaphragm motion on that side. And maybe if you're at that level, high BMI of greater than 40, you may not tolerate that without needing additional oxygen, which means you can't go home, which means you can't have surgery at an outpatient place. That's an example of
That
that.
brings up another quick point we could make is why extreme high BMIs make you more high risk surgical patients and why doctors are worried about that.
Yes, because you have to deal with managing breathing, and if you don't breathe well, or we have to kind of breathe for you or put a breathing tube down, though all those may be more difficult and put the patient at unnecessary additional risk to be done um, in that setting. So that's where BMI matters. It's not an irrelevant number. It just may not be the most precise number. It may not give you the best data for everybody, but it is a number, and it's on our charts that we see when we screen patients that it's up there. We look at it, and it gives you data.
Okay. Okay. And then just simple way, a few simple takeaways that we could do to improve our BMIs or improve our overall health.
I think going into focusing on metabolic health, having a healthy diet and sleep and movement patterns. Again, the audience can reference back our fasting episode or our diet episode, and we'll have other episodes. But those are some ways to improve your BMI. And remember, improving BMI is not just a number; it's just a tool, not a verdict. It's one way
Mhm.
to understand that it could add risk to your long-term health if it's excessively high. But what you do with that information matters.
Mhm.
And things that improve your metabolic health and decrease body fat will improve your BMI.
Mhm. Okay, so, like, high like, fiber in your diet, protein in your diet, less processed foods in your diet, all of those things would help, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. And so maybe think about as let's transition to that high fiber. So let's bring us to something really important. Um, if BMI reflects long-term metabolic risk, maybe, then we have to ask what daily regular lifestyle factors influence metabolic health. Remember, we kept on asking, well, how do I improve my BMI if it's problematic? Improve your metabolic health. And one of those most overlooked ones that in the area of metabolic health may be fiber intake. So that's going to transition us to our next topic, which kind of relates. So BMI, let's go from BMI. Maybe that means your metabolic health is not good. How do we improve your metabolic health? Well, fiber is one of the big ones.
Mhm. And just increasing your daily exercise. I think the more I read and the more I just think logically, increasing your exercise throughout the day, increasing daily exercise, period, but moving more throughout the day, I think is important.
I agree. And if you look at it, there's even people that have implemented what's called standing desk where they're not sitting at their
Mhm,
desk workstations.
mhm.
If you have stairs, like it's, for me, I think to myself, I don't want to do it, but when I come into work at one of our facilities, there's 3 flights of stairs. I'll just take that. I figure, well, that's just built into the day. Um, I'm not diminishing the value of scheduled regular exercise and
No,
movement.
no.
And I think that's important to incorporate in your life. But also don't waste potential opportunities to move and do things throughout the day. One health influencer named Mark Sisson um, talks about how he has this weight in the middle of um, his home. So when he walks through that area, he just looks at it and we'll just do 10 reps of that and carry on with his routine.
Yeah, and
And if
I
he,
think yeah, I think that those are things that I've started doing, and I'll let you know in a few months if it makes a difference, but it seems to me that that just makes your, insulin and glucose, metabolism better throughout
Mhm,
the day, you
mhm.
know? And if you look at historically, generations before us moved a lot more than we move today, just
That's true.
all
That's
day
right.
long, and so I
That's
think
right.
it matters.
Yeah, since that movement throughout the day is ancestral. That's how we
Yes.
live. That's
Yes.
how our
Yeah.
previous.
And I think if
Yeah.
you start thinking about it, you come up with different little ways, like you said, the stairs, and I've got to where, like at work, if I have 5 minutes, I go walk the stairs. It takes me 2.5 minutes to walk the stairs,
Yeah.
but it's movement. So anyway, with that, I think we can, close out now, and if there's anything in this today's little clip that helps you, then like it, share it, and, come back and hear more from us.
Thanks so much for watching. We hope this episode gave you powerful, practical health tips you can actually use. If you enjoyed this content, give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. It really helps our channel and podcast grow. And don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook so you never miss an episode. When you support us, you're helping more people just like you get access to real, helpful health information. Let's grow together and live a health yeah life.